It began on an ordinary evening, the kind of evening where people were caught in traffic jams, checking their phones, heating up leftovers, or laughing with their kids on the couch. Somewhere, a boy was learning to ride a bike. A woman was finishing her shift in a hospital. A man was drinking alone, thinking about calling his ex. It's just another day, until it wasn't. At 7:43 p.m. UTC, every major satellite around Earth went dark. Not just disconnected fried. Military sensors, telecom relays, weather networks, GPS systems dead all at once. There was no explosion, no warning, just digital silence. Air traffic controllers lost contact with planes. Smartphones stopped syncing. News anchors on live TV blinked at their blank monitors, and then the sky opened. First came the clouds folding inward like someone had punched through the atmosphere. Then came the ships, black, sleek, and silent. They didn't roar or rumble. They hovered effortlessly. Dozens of them drifting down like predators that had all the time in the world. People stared. Phones, useless as cameras, still came out. Some live-streamed, others prayed. A few ran. Most just froze. There was no message, no broadcast, no face telling us we were being invaded. Then they started taking us. It began in New York, bright blue. Lights descended from the ships, scanning crowds like cold fingers. When the beams touched people, they collapsed. No blood. No burns. Just a soft hum and bodies hitting the pavement. Entire subway cars were cleared out in seconds. Overhead, the black ships pulsed with eerie rhythm, coordinating like a hive. Within an hour, they were in Tokyo, Paris, Nairobi, Sao Paulo, Mumbai, Los Angeles. Major cities, strategic zones, places that mattered, governments scrambled. Jets were scrambled. Missiles were launched. Nothing landed. The ships had shields or maybe something else, or weapons just evaporated midair. Fighters disappeared from radar and never returned. The White House went offline. So did the Kremlin. Beijing lost power. Every nation was paralyzed in the same instant, staring at the same impossible enemy. The invaders didn't look like us. Or maybe they did. We never saw them, only machines. Tall drones with too many joints. Silver limbs, no eyes, no faces. They walked without sound, without hesitation. When they found people, they either stunned them or took them. Tire blocks were cleared in minutes. No demands, no announcements. They didn't care about who we were or what we believed. They didn't want our resources. They weren't here to talk. They were harvesting in London. A father tried to hide his children in a grocery freezer. A drone found them anyway. In Lagos, a group of teenagers threw Molotovs at one of the landing crafts. The fire didn't scratch it. They were all gone in seconds. In Sydney, 2 police officers opened fire with pistols. One got off 3 rounds before a blue flash dropped him mid-step. This wasn't war. This was extermination with precision. By the end of the first day, we lost contact with every government. Social media collapsed. No more trending tags. No more cute cat videos or angry rants. It's just a blank screen and distant thunder. Some places held out, small towns, wilderness zones, underground shelters, but the cities were gone, and still. There was no sound from the sky, no voice, no face. Just the quiet hum of ships hovering over a dying world. In a bunker outside Berlin, a retired general whispered, "They're not trying to kill us all. They're studying us." No one knew what that meant at the time. In Montana, a group of ranchers held a town with hunting rifles for almost 6 hours before they vanished. In India, a 9-year-old girl wrote a diary entry. "The blue lights took Grandma. Mommy said we have to be quiet forever now." Humanity had never been this united in fear. No matter your country, your language, your beliefs, everyone looked up and saw the same thing. Cold black metal in the sky. Cities turned to ghost towns. Hospitals turned into morgues. Streets littered with shoes, bags, phones, but hardly any blood. It was cleaner that way. Efficient? People asked, why us? Why Earth? We never got the answer. All we knew was this: they didn't come for peace. They didn't come to share, they came to take. And we weren't ready. But soon they would learn we didn't need to be. The aliens thought the war ended the moment they arrived. To them, Earth was already conquered. Our defenses had crumbled. Our communications were dead. Our cities were dark and our armies were gone. They believed they'd broken us in a single day. They had no idea what breaking humans actually looks like. Out in the rural stretches of Appalachia, a group of hunters watched the invasion unfold from a mountaintop. No internet, no phone, no news, just strange lights in the sky and animals fleeing the forests. When the power went out and the town fell silent, they didn't panic. They packed rifles. They moved into the woods. They waited. The Varn sent in a scouting drone, smooth, spider-like, scanning for human movement. It never came back. They sent another. That one exploded. The hunters had set a trap. Bait wire, gunpowder. It wasn't high-tech. It didn't need to be. In the dense jungles of Vietnam, guerrilla fighters who hadn't seen combat in decades reactivated old tunnels from wars long past. When the Varn drones hovered overhead, they vanished underground. What the aliens didn't realize was that humans are masters of invisible war. The jungle became a maze of ambushes, spears, traps, fire. The drones adapted slowly in Siberia. The resistance looked different: cold, silent, efficient. Local militias repurposed mining explosives and scrapped vehicles into rolling death machines. They didn't fight from anger. They fought from memory. The Varn tried to freeze them, outflooding the region with chilled drones that dropped sub-zero chemical clouds. The locals wore fur and kept moving. They had lived with cold their entire lives. The Varn had not. Across the globe, patterns emerged. The aliens understood our cities, our infrastructure, our formal army spot. They did not understand how humans function when cornered. They saw chaos where there was adaptability. They saw noise where there was strategy. They expected surrender and got creativity instead. In Nigeria, a tech collective operating out of an abandoned university used household radios to jam Varn signals. They didn't have military tools, just copper wire, solar panels, and fearless kids with soldering guns. They intercepted drone chatter, translated signals, and built a map of enemy positions in real time. In Brazil, a mechanic named Rosa Gutierrez rigged a broken mining robot with fireworks, oil drums, and the engine of an old city bus. She called it O Bicho. When it charged into a Varn landing zone, the aliens thought it was malfunctioning tech, until it exploded, taking 3 dropships with it. The shockwave was felt for miles. Detroit became a fortress. People who had nothing left turned their neighborhoods into kill zones. Biker gangs laid traps in alleys. Ex-Marines organized rooftop patrols. Former gang leaders created encrypted supply lines, running food and medicine through half-collapsed tunnels. When a Varn cruiser landed in an abandoned stadium, it didn't leave for 3 days. No one knows what happened inside, only that it never rose again. The aliens weren't used to this. In their past conquests, fear was enough. Show overwhelming force, break leadership, dismantle infrastructure, and the species kneels. But humans don't kneel. Not like that. We fight dirty. We use fire, noise, desperation, humor. We weaponize grief. We organize without hierarchy. We resist without hope. And sometimes we fight simply because someone told us not to. The Varn classified our response as disorganized tribal aggression. We didn't realize we weren't disorganized. We were decentralized. It's what made us unstoppable. While one pocket of humans was being crushed, 10 others were rising in unexpected places: a monastery in the Himalayas, a fishing village in Alaska, a desert town in Morocco. The Varn's logic-based systems couldn't keep up. their AI couldn't predict us. It didn't know what to make of songs sung before ambushes. It didn't understand why a group of wounded civilians would charge a patrol just to buy time for strangers to escape. It flagged these behaviors as non-strategic suicidal impulses. It wasn't impulse. It was rage. We weren't fighting for territory. We weren't fighting for governments or borders. We were fighting because we were human, and no one takes that away from us, not without bleeding for it. By the end of the second week, the Varn's frontline communications were in shambles. Their officers had begun requesting extraction. Some called it a tactical error. Others called it a trap. The one thing they all agreed on? The humans weren't dying the way they were supposed to, and soon the Varn would realize something far worse. We weren't just resisting, we were learning. Deep beneath the Swiss Alps, inside a hidden research facility once used for particle physics, a small group of surviving scientists worked in silence. Above them, Europe burned. Cities once lit by centuries of culture and science were now choked. In smoke and silence, the invaders hadn't just brought destruction, they had brought silence. Cold, mechanical silence. No music, no laughter. No mercy. But inside the lab, one thing still burned curiosity. They had managed to capture a Varn comes relay during a skirmish in southern France. It was damaged, half melted, its interface like nothing human engineers had ever seen. Still, they worked on it day and night. It didn't sleep much anymore. There was no time for exhaustion when extinction was the alternative. Dr. Elena Rojas, once a neuroscientist known for her work in emotional cognition, now led the decoding effort. She hadn't seen her family in weeks. Her hometown was likely gone, but she never stopped. The Varn had taken everything except her ability to think. One night, she stared at the streaming data from the relay's memory core. Patterns, repeating loops, statistical models. She realized something. The Varn weren't just attacking Earth. They were studying us, tracking us, predicting us. And failing, the data logs were filled with terms like nonlinear aggression, spike, emotional anomaly cluster. And the one she kept coming back to, unprocessable emotional volatility. At first, it looked like a software bug, but it wasn't. The Varn couldn't understand certain behaviors. They couldn't compute why a dying man would charge a war machine with a baseball bat. They couldn't explain why a mother would light herself on fire to draw drones away from her children. They had a category for these things, chaotic impulses, but it wasn't chaos. It was rage. Dr. Rojas stood up, hands trembling. The realization hit her like a tidal wave. The Varn had removed rage from themselves, genetically, philosophically, generations ago. Their species had chosen to eliminate emotion as a flaw. Rage, love, jealousy, grief, they saw it as weakness, a barrier to pure logic. What they left behind was a calm, calculated intelligence. Untouched by impulse or passion, it made them efficient. It also made them blind. Rage wasn't our flaw. It was our engine. She called it the rage algorithm. Not a literal code, but a conceptual model, a way to weaponize what made humans unpredictable. She fed it into the resistance network, sharing it with commanders, rebels, hackers, civilians. It wasn't a battle plan, it was a mindset. It's a way of fighting the Varn using what they couldn't comprehend. Suddenly, the resistance changed. Not in technology, but in behavior. Entire battalions disappeared into forests, only to emerge in unpredictable waves. Cities lit up with chaotic signals, some real, some fake, designed to lure Varn drones into ambushes. People broadcast war songs in every language across captured alien frequencies. Old poetry, screams. Prayers. One Varn commander, intercepted through a broken relay, described it like this: the enemy operates without structure. They surge, vanish, and retaliate after loss. Their emotions confuse our AI. Their sadness becomes strength, their fear, fury. They are not responding logically. They are evolving emotionally. That was the moment the Varn began to fear us. Not because of our weapons, not because of our technology, but because we were a mirror of what they had lost and we had learned how to use it in one case. A group of teenagers in India used loudspeakers, mounted on stolen trucks, to loop crying babies and static-laced human laughter during an assault. The Varn drones froze. Their threat identification systems couldn't parse the sounds. The attack succeeded in another. A resistance unit in Poland launched an assault immediately after a funeral, using the same flowers as camouflage. The Varn's thermal scanners failed to register the attackers through the decaying organic matter. They never saw it coming. Each time we raged, we grew stronger. The Varn systems couldn't learn. Ours did. Our rage was data. It became strategy. They believed emotions made us weak. But in war, emotion becomes momentum. And rage. Rage becomes gravity. It pulls people together. It gives them purpose. It burns away fear. The Varn had lasers. Precision. Logic. Perfection, but perfection breaks. Rage doesn't? And now they were beginning to see it what humans truly are. When we lose everything, we don't go extinct. We become unstoppable. It started with a shadow. New Dakar, the last major city still under human control, had become the heart of the resistance. Built after the old world's coastlines drowned, and cities collapsed from climate failure. New Dakar was meant to be a symbol of unity. Now it was our last stand by the time the Varn turned their full attention to it. Over 9 million people had taken shelter in the city's underground network, sold metro lines, flood tunnels, power conduits. Some civilians hadn't seen sunlight in weeks. The surface had become a battlefield of smoke, flame, and falling ash. The resistance had dug in deep. Engineers wired old skyscrapers with explosives, turning them into collapsible traps. Teenagers ran drone recon out of schools. Doctors operated by candlelight in converted basements. Above ground, every inch was contested, every alley, every rooftop, every broken window. Then came the Varn's final move. A transmission was intercepted by a resistance outpost in Algeria. Encrypted but clear enough. The Varn had activated something they called Protocol Sweep 0. It was orbital. A plasma cannon suspended in the upper atmosphere. Designed not to destroy cities, but to vaporize them. They gave themselves 2 hours to charge the weapon. Enough time to position their ships, adjust for rotation, calculate for weather. For us, was 2 hours to survive. Commanders panicked. Some called for evacuation. Others called for surrender. But evacuation to where? The ocean. The desert. There was no safe place anymore. This was the end. Unless someone made it the beginning. Captain Jericho Cole was an unlikely leader. No medals, no fancy titles. It's just a former firefighter from Chicago who had been in the wrong place when the world ended and refused to die in it. People followed him not because of charisma, but because he never asked anyone to do something he wouldn't do himself. When the transmission came through, he didn't flinch. "We're not running," he said. "We're going up." The plan sounded insane. Hijack one of the Varn's own shuttles, fly it into the upper atmosphere, crash it into the orbital cannon, and detonate a nuclear core stolen from a downed fusion reactor. The chances of survival were 0. But the chances of stopping the cannon? Maybe 10%, no one argued. No one had time to. The mission was called Iron Scream, a strike. Team of 9 engineers, fighters, pilots, Jericho at the front. They stormed a disabled Varn transport at the edge of the city, half buried under rubble, still flickering with alien systems. They hacked the controls. They jury-rigged the reactor core with explosives. They stripped the interior of everything non-essential. As the shuttle rose, piercing the smoke-thick clouds above New Dakar, the ground forces ignited every flare they had, lighting up the city like a dying star. If this was humanity's last, Day, it would not go quietly. The VAR knew what was happening. They dispatched interceptors. Fast, precise, inhuman. The shuttle shuddered under plasma fire. Hull melting, systems failing. But Jericho kept climbing. At 68 kilometers, the orbital cannon came into view. A black spiked ring floating above the Earth, glowing with stored energy. It looked like a god's eye watching the planet with cold indifference. The shuttle was nearly out of control. One engine was gone, life support was failing, communications jammed. Inside, the team gave Jericho a single nod. No goodbyes, just purpose. He punched the final command into the core, and then the sky caught fire. From Earth, it looked like lightning had struck space. A white flash, a ripple. Then the cannon, once invincible, cracked open like glass under a hammer. Its remains burned across the stratosphere like falling stars, and New Dakar lived. People screamed, cried, fell to their knees. For the first time in weeks, they felt something that had almost become foreign hope. But hope wasn't all the explosion left behind. The shockwave disrupted every barn ship within 500 kilometers. Their systems designed for precision and order couldn't handle the overload. Half their fleet short-circuited midair. Some crashed. Others just stopped. One ship spinning out of control. Broadcast Jericho's last words across its open channel raw. Human, unfiltered. You brought lasers. We brought rage. The message looped across Varn channels. They tried to delete it, but human hackers caught the signal, amplified it, shared it. It echoed across every resistance cell around the globe. In that moment, Jericho Cole wasn't just a man. He was a legend. And legends don't die. They become the fuel that keeps the fire burning. The silence after the blast was unlike anything we had heard since the sky first broke open. No alarms, no drones, no weapons humming overhead. Just silence. For the first time in nearly a month, humanity heard itself breathe. In the days after Jericho Cole's sacrifice, the Varn began to retreat. Slowly at first, not in panic, but in something close to confusion. Their logic-driven systems couldn't comprehend what had just happened. The cannon was gone. The core strategy had collapsed. Millions of predictive models failed simultaneously. Nothing made sense to them anymore. Their ships, once shadows of dominance, now hovered with uncertainty. Some resistance fighters assumed it was a trick. Others didn't wait to find out. They struck hard reclaiming zones, capturing drones, chasing the Varn out of half-ruined cities with fire and steel. For the first time, humans weren't reacting to the invasion. We were leading. In Argentina, a group of engineers hacked into a grounded mothership's AI core. What they found shook the scientific world. Logs, observations, psychological reports. The Varn hadn't just been studying our biology or infrastructure. They had been studying our emotions, our stories, our art. They called us emotionally unstable. They called us dangerously unpredictable. But then the logs took a darker turn. The Varn feared us. Not because of strength, not because of numbers, but because of the one thing they had long since removed from their species: emotional evolution. In their pursuit of perfection, they had erased the parts of themselves that broke, bled, loved, hated, lost, and still kept moving forward. They removed pain. And in doing so, they removed growth. Humans were pain incarnate. We lost and adapted, burned and rebuilt. We survived, not as individuals, but as stories that refused to end. And that made us incomprehensible to them. Their AI described humanity as a threat that could not be mapped because we were not a formula. We were a force. Across the globe, their ships began leaving orbit. Some disengaged and drifted into deep space. Others self-destructed. One mothership in orbit transmitted a single Final message before vanishing into the void. This species is not built for conquest. This species is built for resistance. The war was over, but something else had begun. We found their technology, buried in battlefields. Fragments of faster-than-light engines, energy cores the size of cars, tools for creation and destruction we barely understood. Scientists in the Eastern Bloc powered up a Varn reactor in an old research facility. It hummed to life and didn't stop. We called it the Ember. With it, we built our own ships. At first, they were crude hybrid beasts of metal and scavenged alien design. Ugly things, loud, glitchy, but they flew. And soon they flew high. Not to escape Earth, but to reach what came. Next, the question that had haunted us since the beginning returned in a new form. Why Earth? Why did they come here, of all the places in the stars? And if they came, were there others? We had no answers. So we did what humans always do when faced with the unknown. We went looking for it. The first human-built starship was named Jericho. It left orbit 6 months after the last Farn ship disappeared. Carried 50 men and women soldiers, scientists, poets, engineers, people who had nothing in common except that they had refused to die. They weren't explorers, they were messengers. The stars weren't safe anymore, not for us, not for anyone. The Varn weren't the only ones out there, okay? And we couldn't wait. For whatever was next to arrive on our doorstep, some said it was foolish, that we should rebuild Earth, stay safe, stay grounded. But humans don't stay still. Okay? We never have. Across the ruins of old cities, children played again. Art returned to the streets. Music filled the air. Survivors carried names of the fallen on their backs, tattooed into skin, etched into stone. No one was forgotten, and high above them, orbiting like a promise, was a fleet being born. They brought lasers, precision, strategy, cold logic. We brought rage, chaos, pain, humanity, and rage. When focused. When Hana not just as anger, but as memory, as fire. As refusal became something greater, it became momentum. So when we left Earth, we didn't leave to conquer. We left to make sure no one else would ever try to do to us what the Varn did. We left as survivors, as storytellers, as monsters. Maybe in the eyes of the next invader, we left with a message written across the stars in every language, in every tone, in every heart that beat with fire. We are the chaos you feared. We are the ones who adapt. We are humanity. And we are coming.